Hi, I'm Todd Henderson. Today we're going to be installing the Bakflip Fibermax on this 2012 F-150 with a 5.5 foot bed. The only tool that I'm going to use to actually install the cover with is a ratchet with a 9/16 socket. If your truck has a drop-in bedliner like this one, you'll typically want to use a Sharpie and some type of a tool to notch the bedliner where the rails go. Now with the bedliner, what we're going to do is set the rail in place, and with the Sharpie, mark where we're going to have to remove the bedliner material. Now with a plastic bedliner, what I like to do is I like to go ahead and attach the rubber tubing to the backflip rail, so that whenever I get this rail lined up, I can go ahead and shove the tubing down behind the plastic bedliner. Now if you do not have the plastic bedliner on the F-150, you're going to have a couple of oval shaped plugs that sit down right here that are plastic plugs. I usually like to either pull out that plastic plug and run the tube through there, because the tube will be much longer, or you can actually tap a hole right through that plastic tube and run the drain tube right through there. Now you'll also notice there's a piece of foam attached to this rail. That foam is going to want to go all the way up against the bulkhead. Now if you had a spray-in bedliner rather than a drop-in bedliner, what you would do is you would remove that foam to compensate for the difference in the thickness of the spray-in bedliner material. So once we have that in place, we're now going to attach the clamps underneath the bed rail of the truck. Now once we have initial grab on that clamp, we're also going to pop it from the top to seat that clamp so that this rail doesn't start to gravitate upwards. Something else to know about this rail is that because all your F-150s will come with a plastic bed cap cover, the rail will already have a shim attached to it. So any information about shims, you can disregard. This already has a shim attached. Now that we've installed both rails on each side of the bed, we're going to go ahead and set the cover in place on top of the rails. The short panel is up towards the front near the bulkheads. We're going to set that up there right now. Now attached to the cover up at the front, you're going to find this seal. The seal is only used if you do not have a plastic drop-in bedliner that wraps over top of the bulkhead. Basically what it does, if your bed caps are higher up than your bulkhead, you use a seal. If they're even with your bulkhead, you don't use a seal. In this case, we've got the factory bedliner, so we're just going to discard the seal. Now you may notice there's a hole in the front of your cover. What happens is you have this elevator bolt. It's got a rubber gasket, a little rubber flat washer that's part of it. It's going to go right down through there. Now if you were to pull this back, you'll see how it comes out here. This will go down through this slotted bracket, and at the bottom what we're going to do is we're going to take a flat washer, a flat rubber washer, a flat washer, and a lock washer, and that's going to go through the bottom of the bolt, and then you'll have this star nut that threads onto the bolt, and we're just going to put that on there finger tight for right now. Alright, so we've got the rubber washer, flat washer, and lock washer. They go over top of the bolt. That star knob is going to go over top of there. Now we're not going to tighten that down yet because we still want to be able to shift this forward and backward and center it side to side. We're going to tighten that down after we've centered the cover. Something else that's also attached to the cover is these 3 rubber bumpers that have adhesive attached to them. We're going to take those off. These actually are going to protect the back of the cover from striking the back window of the truck. Alright, so I'm going to rotate the cover forward and see where it would strike the window. I'm going to set the rubber right there. Next, we're going to go ahead and pull the cover down towards the tailgate. Test fit it, make sure everything is nice and square and center. Now we're going to close the tailgate, make sure everything closes down properly. Once everything is nice and lined up, we'll go ahead and open the cover back up and tighten down the star knob at the front, and that will complete the installation.